You're watching Cox Connections only on Cox Nova. Across Virginia and the nation, there's a lot of talk about certain upcoming elections. But whether it's local, state, or federal elections, it's important to know how the process works. Cameron Sassnet is the director of the Fairfax County Office of Elections, and he joins us today to talk about the work that goes into facilitating this important part of our democracy. Welcome, Cameron. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. Tell us about your organization. What does the Office of Elections do?
So the Fairfax County Office of Elections is headed by me, the General Registrar, and I'm appointed by the three-member board of elections for Fairfax County. And we facilitate all the voter registration activities and election activities inside of Fairfax County.
Great. And so that's for all of Fairfax County. And why is it important to have an Office of Elections?
So the work of elections, as you mentioned, there's a lot of activity. Maintaining a local control is very important so that we get the process right. So on election day, distributing the machines, making sure the materials are out there, making sure there's enough ballots so that when you show up to vote, you have the opportunity to do so, and making sure that when you do show up that the registration records are correct. So we organize all that and then a little bit more, but that's why it's important on a local level to have a local office of elections.
So do you have an enormous staff, or do you have to rely on volunteers?
So it's a little bit of both. We have a core staff of about 30 people who operate year-round out of my office, and then seasonally, usually around November, when the main election of the year is we'll ramp up to about 200 part-time individuals. In addition to that, we maintain about 3,000 to 4,000 volunteer officers of election that will actually be in the precinct on election day, and that's their role is just election day.
So what does an officer of elections do?
So they are the facilitators of the election. They're sworn officers on election day, and what they do is they uphold and make sure that there's purity in the election. They are partisan and nonpartisan individuals, and part of that is to make sure that there's an even balance between Democrats and Republicans, and then some folks who are just there to embody the process and make sure that it's pure or nonpartisan as well.
And so what do they actually do on election day?
So what they'll do is they'll set up all the equipment and then make sure that everything is ready to go, and then at 6 a.m. they open the doors and welcome all the voters in. As the voters come in, they'll make sure that they're actually registered to vote, and then if they are, they'll give them the ballot and help them maneuver the process. If they're not registered, help them figure out opportunities to cast a provisional ballot, or if they're in the wrong place, direct them to the correct place. At the end of the day, they run the results tapes and get all that information to us back in our office, and we present it to the public, and then eventually we'll certify the election.
So that's important work being done by staff, but also a lot of volunteers. So how do you get ready for that?
So what we do is we do a lot of training. We're currently right now beginning our training process for November. So as you can tell, far out, about 6 months out. For such a crucial election, we're constantly training our officers to make sure that they're prepared with the information. And then as we get closer to the election, we begin to train them with some of the legal updates that have changed, because election laws change from year to year, and then we make sure that they're prepared with that as well.
So the officers of elections, sort of the obligations are training in advance and then spending most of election day there on site at the place they're assigned to, right? That's
correct. So we have 242 precincts, and we'll assign our officers to one of those precincts on election day. Prior to that, they'll have to attend a training session if they want to be an officer of election, and we offer additional training as optional training as well, so they can take as little as required or a little bit more. And we're very fortunate that a lot of our officers in Fairfax County choose to take the optional training and are really dedicated to making sure that they know as much as they can for election day.
And the training itself, where is that held and how long is it?
So the main trainings that we do are about 2 hours long. We do have a break in between, each hour, and we hold them throughout the county. Most of them are done at my office at the main government center. However, we do utilize other government centers in the regional areas, such as Mount Vernon, and to do some of our other trainings. So people don't have to travel so far if they're down in the Mount Vernon area.
Mm-hmm. So right now, you're recruiting for volunteers, and that's really what the ask is today.
We are always recruiting for volunteers. Even up to Election Day, we'll be recruiting for volunteers because we do need so many people, and we're never going to turn anybody away, but we welcome anybody who is a registered voter. That's the minimum qualification that we have. And then, of course, from there, we do require a few other things, such as attending the training, that I mentioned before, as well as showing up on Election Day. It is a long day.
Yeah. So how, if somebody wants to register to or apply to be an officer of election, what do they do?
So one of the easiest ways, if they have access to the internet, they can go online to fairfaxcounty.gov/elections, and they'll see the recruitment piece of our webpage. They can call our office directly, or they can come in person and ask to apply to be an election officer.
Great. And how can our viewers learn more about all the great work you're doing at the Office of Elections and the important work you're doing throughout the year?
So we have a very thorough website, as I mentioned earlier. The recruitment piece is on there, but if they go to the fairfaxcounty.gov website/elections, then they'll be able to actually find all sorts of information about upcoming elections, as well as being an officer of election, results from previous elections, and just anything else that we have going on regularly.
Great. And while we're gearing up for the big November elections, there are actually elections throughout the year, town and local and state. So you probably need volunteers throughout the year, right?
Year round. Minimally each year we always have a town election in May, as well as the general election in November. And that's every year. Sometimes, most of the time in June, we'll have a primary. This is the first time in 12 years Fairfax County hasn't had a June primary. So we have a nice little break in terms of elections in the summer this year. But also throughout the year, there could be a special election that pops up. So as some people get elected to higher office, it puts a vacancy in their lower office, and we have to fill those with special elections.
Great. So tell us that website once more.
fairfaxcounty.gov/elections.
Great. Well, good luck in your recruitment of volunteers to be officers of elections, and good luck in November. And thanks so much for joining us to share this information today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We have more Cox Connections after the break.